And welcome back. As I said, we're waiting for that press conference from the FBI over the state of the investigation right now, and a lot of moving parts and major developments today, and we'll learn more about that. But while we wait for that, what we thought we'd do is put a face on the victims. We've heard numbers, and you've seen some pictures, and we now know the names of all three people that were lost and the numbers of the people that were injured and some of the scope of it. But we're also learning more than just the names. We're learning about the lives, the innocent young lives that were lost. And Dominic joins us now with more on these people, because you see their lives in many ways, they were Boston. They were young, they were the students, they were the people, they were trying to start out young careers here. And the more you hear, the more it just breaks your heart.
Bottom line, Richard, we are receiving more information even at this hour, and it's heartbreaking as the details emerge. Overnight, thousands gathered in a chilly Massachusetts air for a candlelight vigil honoring the youngest victim, 8-year-old Martin Richard. The brown-eyed Bruins fan had just gotten ice cream and was watching the marathon with his family, seen in his Facebook page when the bombs went off. Even Richard's young playmates, devastatingly aware of the loss, etched messages in chalk on the family's driveway. Richard's mother, Denise, a librarian at the school he attended, like always, was by his side at the marathon. She is still in the hospital, recovering from a head injury. His younger sister, Jane, a dancer, lost a leg. She was a first grader at that same school where her brother's artwork remains, and where staff members are trying to cope before class resumes next week.
We are going to be extremely strong. The joy of those voices will bring us back. Can you stop for a minute?
The emotion just as raw as Patty Campbell remembered her daughter, 29-year-old Crystal Campbell, who was also killed in the attack.
She was a wonderful person.
Campbell reportedly left her job at a restaurant recently to take care of her ailing grandmother, compounding the grief, the initial glimmer of hope when the family was first told Crystal was alive and being treated, only to learn it was her friend who survived.
She was always smiling and friendly. You couldn't ask for a better daughter.
And today, new details are trickling in about the third victim, a Boston University graduate student from China who'd been watching the marathon with two friends when tragedy struck. Her name, Lu Lingzi. Lu studied international trade at the Beijing Institute of Technology. At the time of her death, she was pursuing a graduate degree in mathematics and statistics at BU. Truly heartbreaking. Keep in mind there are still others that are very much fighting for their lives. Richard?
Well, thank you very much, Dominic. You know, for more, I want to bring in someone who not only witnessed the tragedy firsthand, but turned instantaneously from a spectator into a first responder. Dr. Martin Levine is Associate Dean at Torah College of Osteopathic Medicine, and he's kind enough to join us right now. Doctor, thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Rich.
I know that from accounts you said you stepped outside the tent, you heard the first explosion. How did you know right away, when so many people mistook it for cannons or fireworks or something, that this was something altogether different? Because I know you told everybody, get ready, we're going to have a lot of people that we're going to need to make room here to treat.
I think my experience of having worked at the Boston Marathon as a physician volunteering for the past 19 years, I'm familiar with the way things are supposed to look. So when things don't look right, you get a much different perspective. I looked up, obviously I heard the explosion, I felt the concussive force, and then I saw the white plume go up. When I saw the white plume go up, I realized that it was a lot more than just some kind of a cannon or something like that. There's no cannon over there. There wouldn't be a cannon over there. There are only spectators. There are approximately 4, maybe 5 people deep there, maybe about 8 people wide from the size of the plume. And I assumed that that would mean there would be about 40 or so casualties from that area where the first explosion took place.
You know, Doctor, I saw a war correspondent who happened to be in Boston for the race, and she saw some National Guard guys that had combat patches, and they just were shaking their heads, and they said it's just like the IEDs that we see in either Iraq or Afghanistan, except these guys didn't have body armor. They had shorts and T-shirts. Is really basically a triage site the closest comparison you can draw here?
The explosion ripped their legs from the buttocks down. When we got there, we saw that one of the initial individuals had lost both of his legs. I saw multiple people with only the upper part of their leg left, and I saw a foot on the ground between two people that I had no idea whose it had been. I would say that the explosive nature of the way that their muscles, their hamstring and their calf muscles were destroyed may very well can only be done by an explosive device. There were no lacerations or just cuts. There were only explosions within their bodies, and in some places where the flesh was gone, the bone was gone too. So I would suggest that probably only an explosion can do that sort of thing, and you know, absolutely there's no way that these people had any body armor or anything like that on. These people were right there getting the full brunt of that explosion.
I have a feeling the American public, when they realize just of those 170 people plus that came in for care, and still so many in either critical or dismembered, you've seen a lot of these faces here, and you know what lies ahead for these folks. Will the American public, you think, even with all that they know, be a little shocked at the severity and the gravity of these injuries for people, as I understand it, from children to seniors?
Absolutely. These are devastating, horrendous injuries. You know, if we think about people losing their legs for different reasons, typically it's a surgical amputation, something that might be able to preserve enough of the leg so that these people could get an orthotic put on it and still be able to relearn how to walk with an orthotic. I saw such horrendous things that I don't know how they could have saved any of the limbs, and I don't know how many people had anything or enough left to even be able to use an artificial leg on. So I really can't fathom the kind of, and I don't even want to say rehabilitation, it's way beyond rehabilitation, plus many other things for these people to go through over the long run. It's not gonna be something they're gonna know next month or in the coming months. It's going to be years to find out how these people can do and the maximum they'll be able to do.
They've already said, Doctor, they're going to run this marathon next year. You've been going as a volunteer for 19 years, and I'm curious, are you going to be a volunteer for a 20th year? You're going to go back after everything you just saw?
That's a good question. A very good question.
Well, I know you've heard it from many people, but I'd like to add mine to it. Thank you very much for what you did. And I know, as you mentioned, a lot of other people did this, not just in the medical community, but just volunteers, people who just stepped from the side of the streets to do what they could as well. But nonetheless, as you know, you did a lot of good that day. Thank you very much, Doctor. I appreciate a few minutes.
I do appreciate you saying that, and the only thing I would add is people have said this is war-type things or whatever. It's not. We were not under fire. We did not have our people firing on them. And the people that were injured were not people that I had worked with for 2 years or more, and they weren't people that I knew. Army personnel, armed forces personnel are dealing with this kind of catastrophe regularly, except it's on their best friends. I don't know how they can deal with it, and I don't know how they can be totally normal when they come back here. I was very skittish for a long time after that after I saw what I saw and I did what I had to do, but it just means to me that every time I have the opportunity, I'm going to say something to someone in uniform like, thank you for your service.
And I think we probably had to follow that lead.
Thank
Dr. Levine, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you know, a couple things, Gina, I take away from that, which is, you know, America sees three faces right now, and they're all tragic. But that 8-year-old, you know, we're parents, everybody at this table, you see it. It's just like after Newtown. You know, there's this instant. I mean, you saw that Gap 2 smile, and you just can't get out of your head. But the reaction when they see these, I believe, dozens of people that are going to be without legs, without, you know, as he said, this is not a clean amputation either. I mean, some with no limbs, as it was described. I think that's going to be another really raw reminder for people when these people start emerging from hospitals and we learn more about what they're going to have to go through. I really think that's going to be pretty jarring for the American public.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, there's going to be another wave of shock. I mean, we hear about it, but to actually see how these people have suffered, and you're absolutely right, these 3 victims, all young, all under the age of 30. Obviously, this poor 8-year-old boy, I mean, it's just a heartbreaking story, and I think we're going to be shocked again as we start to see these victims emerge in various conditions to live their lives in this way.